Everyone.
Go ahead.
Hey everyone, really excited to share with you a story about one of my favorite birds called the Osprey. And the title of this book is Ollie, the Long Island Osprey. So here we go. Ollie, the Long Island Osprey. In the small town of Orient, which sits at the end of Long Island Sound on the North Fork, spring has finally arrived. Trees were beginning to get buds for new leaves, early flowers like crocuses were starting to creep up from under the ground, and fish had begun to swim both north toward the warmer water. Following those fish, as they do every year since the end of the Ice Age, are ospreys. They come back each spring to nest, fish, and have children. Some families nest on tall platforms built by humans. They've got a built-in platform for the ospreys to perch on, just the way they like. Some are a little more creative with their site choice, like this family who built their nest on top of a street light. They've got a great view of the basketball games that are played below them. Some nest sites are more dangerous, like this family's nest on top of a telephone pole. Their nest had been previously removed and a red flag was placed to deter them from coming back to build there again. The osprey don't care about red flags though. Once they decide on a nest site, they're committed to it. Plus, they're great recyclers, and they use all kinds of materials to make and furnish their home. They'll use plastic bags, old boat ropes, and various other items they find along the way, so a red flag is one less item they'll need to bring back. This is Ollie's nest. His family decided years ago to nest at the top of a dead tree. Daddy returned earlier than Mama, as all male ospreys do, to start working to repair the nest from the previous winter's damage. Even after the 2 eggs were laid, Daddy would still bring items to add as well as fish for Mama to eat. After about 39 days, Ollie hatched from his egg using a special egg tooth. A few days later, his sister Olivia hatched. They started out featherless and slightly scaly until they started to grow their feathers. They'll stay at the nest with Mama for about 2 months, with their daddy providing all the fish for them and Mama to eat. During this time, they grow at an amazing rate. One day, Ollie was peeking over the edge and caught sight of his daddy. He watched as his father hovered in midair above the water, searching for a fish. Ollie saw him seem to stop before his wings tucked behind him, and then he started falling toward the water. "Mama," he called, "Daddy is falling." "It's okay, Ollie," his Mama soothed. "That's how we fish. Watch Daddy so you can learn. One day you'll do it too." "Oh, I could never do that," he exclaimed. Ollie watched as his daddy suddenly flipped his legs forward and then entered the water. "Mama, Mama," he yelled again in alarm. "Daddy went under the water." "Keep watching," Mama told him. "He'll be up in just a second, safe and sound." And just as Mama had said, up emerged Daddy carrying a wiggly fish in his talons, and was safe and sound. But how? First, we only go under the water just a little bit, maybe 3 feet or so, and we have very oily feathers that make it hard for water to stick to, Mama explained. "Your feathers are young yet, but you'll be just like me and Daddy very soon. Also, there aren't any feathers on the lower half of our legs, and our talons are long and very sharp, so that we can get the fish, see?" She paused and saw the wonder on Ollie's face as his daddy was returning to the nest carrying their lunch. After he looked at her legs and talons, she went on. "Under our feet are little spicules, which are rough spines, and they help us grab fish easier. Also, we always turn the fish head forward to make it easier to control and carry." Ollie looked over with pride at his daddy, who was perched on a nearby branch of the tree of their nest was built on. "I want to be just like him one day," he thought to himself. As sure as Mama had told him, Ollie had quickly grown, and when he was just 2 months old, he looked just like his daddy. The only difference was that his dark feathers had little white speckles all throughout them. His sister Olivia liked Mama because she had the brown feathers around her neck, like a necklace. Mama had stayed with them the whole time, and Daddy had been the one to fish for them all. It was now time for Ollie and his sister to try out their wings. Ollie started out small, just going to a branch lower down on their tree. Late spring, almost summer, was especially wonderful to Ollie. He learned more and more from his mama and watching his daddy. He was flying around their nest in the marshes close by and had become a very good flyer, and soon it would be time for him to fish for himself. He was very nervous, but Mama's explanation of how they're able to fish, plus the many other times he watched his daddy, he knew he could do it. So when he was just about 3 months old, he tried for the first time. After first soaring and hovering above the water, he caught sight of a fish. He then tucked his wings behind him as he dove toward the water. Alas, he didn't get the fish, but he emerged safe and sound and was now very determined to try until he was successful. Ollie tried again, and again, and even again. Ollie had tried 3 more times, and when he was on his 4th try, that he tucked his wings once again, flipping his legs and talons toward the water. And then he surfaced, and while he was pulling himself up from the water, he knew that finally, success. As he rose from the water, he thought to himself proudly, "I did it, I caught my first fish." But then the fish started wiggling and struggling now that it was out of the water, and Ollie, in his excitement, almost forgot what to do. What was it that Mama taught me about fishing, that we must do to fly in with the fish? He thought, and after a brief moment he remembered. Yes, turn the head forward with my feet. He did, and proudly flew with his first catch to a nearby branch up high in a tree to eat his meal. During the next month and a half, Ollie lived at his parents' nest while he learned how to fish better and still get help from his mama and daddy. They helped him learn how to take care of himself, and now it was time for him to be on his own. Summer was there and the days were long and beautiful out on the North Fork. The fishing was excellent, and Ollie was catching flounder, blowfish, and other shallow water fish from both Halleck's and Peconic bays. One day he was resting in a tree when he noticed a small red animal nearby. "Hi, I'm Ollie," he said. "I'm a fish hawk. What kind of animal are you?" "First, my name's Carl, and I'm a bird like you." Carl the cardinal said and introduced himself. "I know you're a fish hawk, or osprey to be more precise." "Oh," Ollie began. "I just recently left my nest and really have never noticed other birds or animals, just other ospreys like me." "Well," Carl said, "there are lots of animals and birds, and if you want, I can teach you all about them." "I'd love that," Ollie answered excitedly. "You'll be my first friend." And so began Ollie's friendship with Carl. The summer days were filled with lots of fun for Ollie and Carl. When Ollie wasn't fishing, he spent lots of time talking and hanging out with Carl. Carl would often watch Ollie as he fished and was very proud of his friend's growing accuracy as a fisherman. Carl also knew Ollie would have to be very accurate, and soon he wondered if Ollie knew as well. His wondering was ended one day when Ollie said, "We're going to be the best of friends forever, Carl. I never want to be anywhere but here with you, and with my parents close by, of course." Carl began very slowly with what he had to say to Ollie. He knew it would be a surprise, and not one he would like. "Ollie, you know, you'll have to leave soon. The weather is changing, summer is ending, and..." Before he could finish, Ollie interrupted him, shouting, "What do you mean? I have to leave?" "Well," Carl began again, "ospreys migrate, or fly south for the winter. You aren't home to visit your parents much, but I figured they would have told you by now. You should go ask them." "No way," Ollie shouted angrily. "Besides, I'm not leaving, ever, and I don't believe you." He flew off toward the beach. Carl followed him and gently said, "Well, if you don't believe me and won't ask your parents, you should ask Harriet the Great Horned Owl. She's very smart and knows everything about where we live." "Where does Harriet live?" Ollie asked. "She lives near the end of this inlet in the forest," Carl explained. "But you can meet her at the dead birch tree. It's where she perches before she goes hunting." "When?" Ollie asked. "Right at sunset," Carl answered, and as Ollie's grew wider at his response, he said, "I'll watch you from a branch nearby, and I'll stay the whole time." True to his word, Carl stayed and watched from a branch nearby. "Who are you?" Harriet the Great Horned Owl asked, "and what do you want?" "I'm Ollie, and my friend Carl. He's a cardinal," Ollie began. "Well, he told me that I have to leave at the end of the summer to go where it's warmer for the winter. Is that true?" "It is true," Harriet responded, but when she saw the sadness in Ollie's eyes, she continued saying, "But you'll return here again in your second spring, once you're older and stronger." "So I'll be able to see Carl again?" Ollie asked hopefully. "Yes, my dear," Harriet responded. "Now hurry back before your mama gets too worried." "Thank you, Harriet," Ollie responded and flew straight to his parents' nest, even though it really wasn't where he stayed much anymore. Once there, his mama could tell that he had something to share with her. She waited until he first spoke. "I'm sorry I'm late," Ollie started. "I had to find out an answer." Mama nodded and asked, "Did you get your answer?" "Yes," he started. "It is true, isn't it, that I'll leave here soon after the summer is over?" "Yes, Ollie," Mama answered, "it is true. You'll fly south after Daddy and I have left. It's a long flight to South America, but I know you can do it." "If you say so, I believe you, Mama. You've always told me the truth, even when it has been hard to believe myself," Ollie said, and leaned in close to his mama. Ollie's daddy left the nest first and then Mama. It was October and fall was in full swing. Ollie stood on a branch by the bench and knew it was time. "Thank you for being my friend, Carl," Ollie said sadly. "I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too, Ollie," Carl said, equally as sad. "But remember, when you come back in 2 years, it'll be like you never left." With that said, Ollie took off for one last fish before it was time to head south. After he finished eating at his old nest, he took one last look around and left saying to himself, 2 years. It'll only be 2 years before I call these waters home again." After Ollie had left, Carl flew up to Ollie's parents' nest. He perched on a branch and watched Ollie fly away. Sending a prayer, he said to himself, "Good luck, my friend. May your journey south be easy, and in 2 years, we'll see each other again." The end.